one of the reasons we don't get along is that tribes employing exactly the same techniques are paying no attention to their commonality and are only paying attention to their opposite branding. And so you get cults and countercults. A countercult is simply a cult that is overreacting to the last cult's overreaction. So you get communism on the one side, and then you get the overreaction in libertarianism. And I've read von Mises, I've read Marx. They are doing exactly the same game. They're pretending that science makes their theories and wishes inevitable. They sound exactly the same to me, but the branding is opposite, and so you get this rivalry across brands.
Hey, welcome to Unlatched Mind. This is episode 51. My guest today is Dr. Jeremy Sherman. Jeremy's been on the show before. We did an episode together back in 2019. I was just poking around one night, and some of his content came through my feed, and I just hit him up and said, "Hey, you want to do an episode this weekend?" And here we are. He had a blog that caught my attention, and it really talks about the real reasons why we just can't get along. His Ph.D. is in evolutionary epistemology. He certainly understands us as a species and the evolutionary progress that took us to get here. So he has an interesting take on why we don't get along. And this conversation went everywhere. Really, we took it in a good way. We took it for a journey for sure. Somehow masturbation came up several times actually. So, but I had a blast. I just felt like it was just two buddies just kind of getting back together after a long time not seeing each other. So I hope you get something out of it. So here we go. I give you Dr. Jeremy Sherman. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for your time. Seriously. I think my goal for this was to like I said in my email, hey, let's just wing it. We'll just jump into it. But then of course I'm reading some of your material, and I'm like, I saw your blog on just why we don't really get along, and I think you have some, and by the way, you corrected me a little bit. You said I put the title of my notes, can't we all just get along? And I said nope, and that's kind of me being that pessimistic. And then when I went through the article, I was actually a little bit more optimistic because I'm talking about a free space on the bingo board, actually a place that we could get along if it weren't for for a stronger appetite in us. That's been a focus for me. The reason why we would gravitate to pretending we don't get along when we do. There's obviously plenty of places where we'll disagree. But anyway, I should explain the concept if that's helpful. Yeah, if you want to summarize the concept, summarize the blog, and then we'll start dissecting a little bit. That'd be great.
Yeah. I'm going to summarize the article, but actually tie it into a couple of other ideas that have been on my mind this last week.
Sure thing.
People want signs from God that they are God. I'm not talking about religious people. I'm talking about everybody. We walk around with uncommon quantities of doubt. Being human beings, we are an anxious species. When you compare what a dog could worry about before falling asleep to what a human could, just no contest. Humans would be an anxious species. Doubt is really a problem for humans, and so we will gravitate toward any idea that relieves doubt. And when you think about the ultimate being relieved from doubt, it would be God. So whether you believe in God or not, you still have this appetite to feel perfectly right, righteous, and mighty. That is, that we would want to play God. Humans would want to do this, and it would show up even in the mildest cases. So we're going through our lives and we see an idea and it becomes our pet idea. Why is it a pet idea? Because it sounds good. It sounds affirming. It's what we call virtue signaling. It's also vice shunning. That is love, hate, that kind of stuff. But anything that relieves our doubt. I work in the world of ideas. It took a whole long time for me, like 40 years before I got beyond moving towards the self-flattering ideas. I was drawn to ideas that made me feel good about myself. And actually, the window into this whole academic second half of my life was reading Richard Dawkins' book, Selfish Gene, which the reviewers described this way. They said it made every reader feel like a genius. So that's what we're drawn to. The content hardly matters. I'll just go for an idea that makes me feel good about myself, like I'm part of the solution, not part of the problem. Now, you apply that then to what we've got in language is a lot of morally loaded words. So if you study linguistics, you know that there are two parts to a word. There's basically its normativity, its goodness and badness, and then there's what it refers to. So I could take a word like closed-minded. Right now, it's considered a pejorative to be closed-minded. That is, if someone described you as closed-minded, you would feel insulted or shamed. And you might be tempted to defend yourself. Open-minded's the opposite. Okay, so what do these refer to? It almost doesn't matter. We are picking words. We are branding ourselves with words based on how they feel, the vibe, and in particular about whether it will add to our sense of self-worth or freedom from doubt to align ourselves with these words. Now, notice how obviously we are all open and closed-minded about different things. There's nothing virtuous about being open-minded or closed-minded. The question, it's like, obviously, you're trying to be receptive to some things and not receptive to others. We can't possibly be open to everything. If we were, we'd be psychotic. It would be insane. So what do we even mean by these words? Or take another pairing of words that are used both as insults and as compliments. Liberal and conservative. Liberal means loosen things up. Conservative means tighten things down. Everybody is liberal and conservative. You couldn't possibly live without the combination of constraints and freedoms. So when you brand yourself to them and think that you are somehow on the side of virtue by claiming that you are one of those instead of the other, you're just going completely blind. And you're doing it, why? Because it's flattering. You feel like you've solved the problem. You're just, always be this way, never be that way. And then the stupidest move you can make of all is, once you got two of these words, once again, it doesn't matter what the words mean. That's secondary, and no one's paying attention to that. If you say, I'm on the side of this word is virtuous. So this word is good. So I'm going to make up a name of a god and a devil. So gobbledy is everything virtuous. And I have aligned myself with gobbledy. And anybody who challenges me is challenging the god gobbledy, which makes them a heathen. Okay? The words, you don't have to pay any attention to what the words mean, and you get to play this game. And that's what I think is the heart of that's the easy stuff we could deal with and get along. We still have to decide when to be open and when to be closed. If you and your spouse are debating whether to move someplace and you're not receptive and she is, that's still a problem. But it's certainly not resolvable by saying one should always be receptive or never be receptive.
Right. Right.
But I'm saying that we could get along a whole lot better if we would just own that we are all liberal conservatives. We are all open, closed-minded. We are all courageous. We are all sensitive. We are all insensitive. All of these pairings, we own them all. No one can escape them except in this fantasy God playing.
Well, I think, excellent intro. I mean, but I look at it sort of like, if you zoom out, everything in nature is a continuum. There's no 90-degree angles. There's no binaries, right? That's a made up thing, right? Left versus right is it's our political system here in the U.S. So that has to influence how we think, right? It shouldn't have to, but it does, right? Unfortunately, people ask me, like, I think I put in my notes to you, oh, are you liberal or conservative? Well, I say, well, what's the issue you're asking me about? And I'll tell you how I feel about it. And a lot of times when I tell them how I feel about it, I go, I check some in the conservative column, some in the liberal column. They're kind of like, well, where do you land? I'm like, I don't have to land anywhere. I'm not running for office. I can just think about these things. Now, when I have to vote, I have to choose a side. That gets hard. But I think everything's a continuum. None of us are at black or white.
Days, I think.
What's that?
It gets a little less hard these days, I think.
Well, I know you stand on some of those. Yes, I read some of your.
No, no, and it's not because of it's not about policy. I have a master's in public policy among my degrees, but no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about exactly these issues. That is, there are. I take a weekly walk with the founder of Move On, which was a big liberal organization. I'm in Berkeley, okay?
Yep.
And for years, so she's moved on to a project she calls Living Room Conversations, where she brings together left and right wingers. And it took us about 2 years of walking every week before she admitted I was right about something, which is that there are really 3 parties in the United States right now: left, right, asshole. That is, there is a third party. It's got nothing to do with content. It could be left. They could be branded left, branded right, branded whatever. That's not the point. They're just They're just playing God. So anyway, that's all I meant. And sorry for the distraction. That was
no, not at all. There are no distractions. This is all part of it. No, but I totally agree with everything you said in the opener. I mean, everything. Like again. If I take, and I wrote some examples here, and I've had these conversations with people. So take an issue, and I'm always going to go back to some issue that people can sink their teeth into. Okay, are you pro-life or pro-choice? Well, for example, if I'm 85% pro-life, but I can see and I can truly understand, and I have a heartfelt understanding of why someone wouldn't think it would be okay to bring an unwanted child into this world, right? So you're pro-life, but you also feel you check 15% of you checks that pro-choice box. Like, what do you do with that, right? Is it discussion? It's a discussion, and I see both sides of the issue in that. And I'm not saying me. This is just an example that people can actually sink their teeth into. But is it unless you're just in the world of academia and you can just really, it's kind of a dream world that you can just have these big, heavy conversations all the time, and you actually don't have to like put policy in place. And maybe I keep going back to the policy thing because I'm trying to, get it back to an understanding.
So actually, I think there's a couple of things you've already brought up I'd like to address.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
The continuity of nature or of reality is a central theme in my work. Let's see. See that guy in the back? If you can see him, the lowest guy with the beard. His name is Charles Sanders Peirce. He was a very important American early philosopher. I am in his lineage. He coined the term cynicism for the continuity in nature. But I also want to point out that we have to live in nature.
Yeah.
And having to live in nature, we do face either or choices. And basically what I'm trying to describe, and this is, though it's simple and intuitive, it comes straight from the origins of life research I do. We're all riding on winding roads. We're trying to control ourselves so that we stay on the road. You can fall off this winding ridge road in either direction. You've got to be minding both sides of it. And there will be turns when you either make the right turn or not. Now, that's not reality. That's not a discontinuity in reality. It's a discontinuity in terms of what you will do to save your ass, to stay alive. Okay, and so that's what I mean. This has been true for life from the beginning. Simple example or simple explanation. I know this is a little far afield from the pro-life thing, but it's actually on the question of life. One of the things about nature's discontinuity is, continuity, is that everything is moving towards degeneration. Everything's falling apart. Some things are really durable. That bookshelf behind you is going to stick around for a while, but you are not. We know that about us. That is, if someone dies and stops regenerating themselves, they fall apart so quick that in 10 minutes, they're not restorable. That is, that's how fast these fragile, soft, liquid bodies we are. So we're in the business of, so here's the challenge. We need energy in order to regenerate ourselves. Like today, you're going to produce 240 billion new cells today. You can do that without thinking or feeling. Okay, that takes a lot of energy and resources. At the same time, energy and resources is what dissolves us. That is, when you think about a hurricane, it does not organize your lawn furniture. So the challenge for all organisms is when to be open and when to be closed. And that is a choice. That is, you want to be open to the right things, not the wrong things. You want to be closed to the right things, not the wrong things. That's why open and closed is a stupid dichotomy, but that is like you're completely open-minded or completely closed-minded. That won't work. So at least I want to point out that we do need to make either or choices sometimes, even though nature is continuous. But to your second point that I want to get to, whenever someone says, are you pro this or pro that, or they throw one of these verbs at us like you should always be loving, I think you should always throw. Always throw. It doesn't make any sense. Because throw is a verb that actually needs an object. You got to know what you're throwing. So loving could take an object or not. I can say I'm loving to my child, or I'm loving, I love my child. But you can also say love is the answer. No, it's not. It's the question is what to love. So when someone says, are you pro this or pro that? Yeah. And you say, in what context? That's the right question. So I just wanted to get that part covered. We could go back to pregnancy, to pro-life and pro-choice.
No. That's a good generalization. I mean, that's a good rounded it out there.
Always throw.
Always throw. Man, you must be a blast at dinner parties. Love is the answer. No, it's not.
No, love is the question.
No, but I'm the same way. Like I think I joked about this with you last time. I started the podcast because I like having these conversations, but in a lot of general conversations at parties and family get-togethers, you get some tilted heads when you start bringing up these, like, when you hear these.
No. Why do you think I spend so much time alone? No, it took me a long time to realize. No, I'm. First of all, I love being with me, though it is, but I wouldn't impose it on anybody.
I've had those same feelings. Yes.
No. I've got to, but you?
Yeah. So, evolutionarily, why do we behave this way? In other words, I think you had a quote. We enjoy whatever I think at the beginning of projecting our inconvenient halves on of ourselves onto others. So why are we doing that?
Again, I think so. So evolutionarily, notice that potato bugs, Douglas fir trees, even dogs and chimps, they don't do it like we do. We're really a different species. Even though we're just a mid-sized mammal, what's the difference between us? Language. I think that what we call symbolic competence. So language gives us a way to abstract that makes us way more visionary and way more delusional, way more anxious, and way more denialist than any other species. Like I said earlier, if you compare what your dog could worry about. Dog's life is harder. Let's say a wolf out in the wild, or let's say a rabbit out in the wild. Their life is in many ways harder, but it's certainly not the vast array of things that you and I could worry about. And then you compound that by you falling asleep right next to your phone, and you could look up any number of real and imaginary threats and missed opportunities. You didn't get in on Bitcoin at the right time. Just endless possibilities for us, and a capacity to remember and ruminate. About past failures, past missed opportunities, future, including the biggest one of all, which is a subject of a whole field of psychology, which is our own deaths. We are, with language, we're the only creatures who can really know it's inevitable, and that we are throwing our all into something that we will be thrown out of. And so when you imagine all of that, and then you imagine how language can come and free us from that, all the denialist ways that we can just easily dispel whatever's uncomfortable to us. And even though we've got language, we're still doing it by feel. What do you get when you cross feelings with language? You get language that justifies your feelings. It comes easily. You don't have to pay attention to what the words mean. You just you use the words. So this would be the heart of why evolutionarily I think we are a creature that would do this. We would tend to want to, in the Jungian sense, we would tend to want to ignore or project our shadow onto other people. Anybody who in our way. And another way to look at this is, think of what people do when they get lots and lots of power or fake power. That is, and Elon Musk this month is just a perfect example of this. And I'm not saying it's not about their character, it's about human character. If you were granted total freedom, you would take it as proof that you are God. And anybody who disagrees with you is not there with, what did I call it? The blather, and I'm with gobbledy. That would be right. What you would do. You would simply say, this proves that I was fated for glory, and things in my way are nemesis. They are God. They are the devil. That's what humans would do if they could get away with it. It's kind of a bummer, but
yeah.
But to name it is to tame it, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I just, I'm not liked at all cocktail parties for this reason.
Yeah. No, it's just it's almost, I mean, it's I can see you peeling back the invisible layer, of how we think, and I mean that's obviously what you do, but it's neat. It's absolutely neat. I mean, the ability to want to belong to a tribe. I mean, doesn't that come in here as well? Right.
Oh, totally.
I
and
believe
so notice
that, and that's all I believe in. Look at my tribe. I joked about on this podcast several times. It's like kind of lonely here in the thinking center. It's lonely. It's like, what's my tribe? It's like, well, I kind of get along with you a little bit, kind of get along with you a little bit. Don't really agree with you there. Let's talk more about it. By that time, everyone's exhausted and they go home. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. All right, I'll see you later. Like,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So and it's not the way it manifests in tribe is that it's actually brand. It's branding, not content. So you get this. One of the reasons we don't get along is that tribes employing exactly the same techniques are paying no attention to their commonality and are only paying attention to their opposite branding. And so you get cults and countercults. A countercult is simply a cult that is overreacting to the last cult's overreaction. So you get communism on the one side, and then you get the overreaction in libertarianism. And I've read von Mises, I've read Marx. They are doing exactly the same game. They're pretending that science makes their theories and wishes inevitable. They sound exactly the same to me. Yeah. But the branding is opposite, and so you get this rivalry across brands.
Branding. I feel like you just said what I've said in the past, only, in different words, where I think that it seems like this pendulum, it's always this pendulum effect. There's some set of quote unquote normal values, and then the overcorrection keeps happening. And it's just a continuous of overcorrection, and we just keep going like this. I feel like I don't feel like we're set. I don't think we're settling in the middle anymore. I think we just keep the pendulum moving.
Well, but so I'm not arguing for the middle. And I agree with you. I call it oversteps in the right direction. That's what an overcorrection is to me. You're having an overreaction. But this comes back to the part to that article that you read. To own both parts is difficult for us because having decided to hold opposites in mind, you're forever burdened by the question of when to apply which. If we're riding down a winding road, you actually have to mind the road because it's not like you can just say, this is winding, it's as much to the left as to the right, so I'm just going to keep my steering wheel in the middle. No, I have to keep on paying attention to the opposite sides of the road, which is why it's so tempting to say always turn left, always turn right. You'll die, but that's not the point. You can say it without doing it. So anybody who says they are completely open-minded, no, they're not behaving they're just as closed-minded as the next person. Probably more because they deny that they could be closed-minded because they have subscribed to the open-minded branding or whatever. That is, we're still just humans. We're still driving these winding roads. It's about the posturing and the branding. As if you have found the formula for riding this uncertain winding road so you can go on autopilot, basically.
Are you exhausted with humanity? I mean, because like it takes so much effort to look at issues the way you do, the way we're talking through, the way I aspire to, the way you seem to have obviously this is your work, right? You understand how we think, but most people you're going to talk to, unless you keep a tight circle of your friends, which I think you're probably, my guess is you keep a lot of different various opinions around you. I don't see you as someone who only wants to surround themselves with people that think like you. I don't know. There's probably no one else out there anyway, so you're probably alone. But but are you? I'm just trying to think because it's so much effort. As opposed to, I'm going to pull, I believe all this stuff in this column, or I believe all this stuff in this column. And then we just, again, I go back to politics. I feel like politics, it's like reverse, where we're supposed to have, values and things that we believe in and things that we research and think about or pray about, whatever, whatever people do. And then they vote. But it's like, I feel like it's the opposite where, and again, this is a very centric to the United States with a two-party system, but it's kind of like, I feel like that becomes the beacon for folks, and then they pick which side they're on, and then they sort of backfit how they should feel about any topic into whatever tribe they've jumped onto. So it's like there's almost no room for this independent thought. Like maybe I'm being actually overly pessimistic. I don't know.
No, so in answer to your question, no, I'm not exhausted with humanity. I lose sleep over humanity. But that's also a function of my situation. Like I said, I have my whole day free for this stuff. And it just tickles me pink to get to explore what it is that this mid-sized mammal with this newfangled thing called language and then technology on top of that does and is doing. Now, lifelong, I would say the overarching disappointment of my life is that I thought that everybody grew up to be an adult. And then I just realized, no, I mean, at every scale, including in me, because the heart of this work is anthro-introspection. I'm a mid-sized monkey with language. I'm a hoot too. There is nothing that other people do that I don't do. Nothing human is foreign to me. So it's fascinating to be one of these, and also to be in a position where I can take notes on it. But here's the thing. I don't have to go to work in the morning at some other job. I don't have to spend a third to a half of my day playing a persona in order to keep people comfortable, to keep my family okay, to keep my livelihood, all of that. I mean, I hang out with Dan Ellsberg. I don't know if you remember him. Do you remember him from Pentagon Papers? Dan Ellsberg?
Oh, so, no, I
should.
I know
quite
the name.
The cat. He's 90 years old. He basically founded the field of behavioral economics, which is huge. Yeah. And then he went on and he was the first whistleblower, and he's 90 years old now. And if you ask him what he says, it's a theme between us. We have lunch every couple of weeks. He says people can be as stupid as they need to be to keep their jobs. Mm-hmm. And I think I want to say it in a more respectful way than that, which is that if you've got to hold down a full-time job, you're going to have to outsource your philosophizing to sources that can bring you a bit of comfort, reassurance, almost lullaby stuff. It's that is you will do that. And so whether it's a political belief or a religious belief or a spiritual belief or an ideological or philosophical belief, that's my full-time life. I am in this, Bertrand Russell described philosophy as a peculiarly stubborn attempt to think clearly. Why? Because these guys get full-time to do it. Yeah. If you don't have that, and you've got to maintain. I mean, one of the reasons why I'm single is that I need my mind back. I can't afford to think certain things when I'm also trying to maintain the comfort of my partner. Right. Partnership is, to feel safe in partnership, you need two sometimes opposite things. You need total honesty. You will totally screw it up if you're not honest. And you need total affirmation. those during the honeymoon period, the totally honest thing is that you're totally affirming of the other person. You get beyond that, and then you're stuck with this challenge of, okay, am I going to be honest or am I going to be affirming? And I can get beat up. I can be in trouble, not beat up. It's not a victim thing, but I can be in trouble for failing on either account or both. I've had partners say to me, "You should be more honest. You should be more affirming," without even noticing that those are two often conflicting things. And why would you not notice? Because they both sound hella good. Mm-hmm. So if you're collecting ideas not based on what they mean, but on whether they sound like a good thing or a bad thing, yeah, you'll end up a hypocrite. You'll be saying, you should be more honest and you should like me more.
Those are opposing tensions for sure.
Yeah, no, that's right. So anyway, in short answer to your question, no, you can tell by my enthusiasm about this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm having the time of my life. I'm having a great time, but that's because I can afford to.
Well, that's a good point. And you were pretty, you were pretty honest about that, your situation last time we spoke, which I looked it up. It was September of 19. That was been a while, but
wow.
No, but you're right. But majority of that's why I was wondering about. I always wonder. I always ask folks like you: are you optimistic or pessimistic about where we're going? Because most people are not in your position. They are. They have to put the shackles on of that 9 to 5 or whatever it is, and be and you said
they also have to put on the optimism. A lot of what they have to do is optimistic. They have to stay optimistic, in a way I don't. Can you see? I mean, you've got to stay optimistic in your family life. You've got to stay optimistic at work. That's what customer service is all about. What am I? I am. This is also a topic that comes up with Dan Ellsberg all the time. He's 90. He's thinking nothing we did to try to make the world a saner place worked. He said to me the other day, "I'm thinking I should retire." This guy is 90, my common line to him is, "You have no clue how old you are. You have no idea." Because but anyway,
that's great.
Because he has nothing encouraging to say. But what I come to is the same place he does, which is, no, if I were an actuarial, if I were doing assessment of what the prospects are for humankind, I would say the odds are not in our favor. I do a lot of research on why this would be true for any organism that had language anywhere in the universe. That is, they'd be dealing with the same exact problems we are. They'd have climate change and climate change denial. Denial is possible with language, and so is climate technology. You need both of those. So I'm guessing this is how many cultures, astrobiological, intelligent life forms has faded out. But does that have any bearing on my work? Not a whit. No, what am I? Obviously, I've worked full time on this stuff, trying to figure out how to make, how to keep us from going extinct, and the prospects, whether the prospects are good or bad, has no bearing on that work. My work doesn't flag because I think the odds are against us. Dan sometimes talks like that, like if it's the end of the world, why bother? I'm not 90 yet. At 90, maybe he could take a day off at 90. But
well, it's like science and data doesn't care if it's giving you bad news or good news. It's just the data. It's just it's just there. It doesn't care about the outcome. Yeah,
that's right. So it's related to that, and it's I think it's that plus it's another element, which is if your experiments aren't going well, do you give up? What do you give up when something isn't going well? There's that often misquoted thing from Einstein that the definition of madness is expecting different things from the same behavior. That's not Einstein never said that, and it's not true. That is, where to persevere is the big question. If you're in a rut, if you're in a groove and then it starts to feel like a rut, how long do you give that rut before you decide that you need to try something else? So I will change my approaches but I would say that no matter what, I am interested in what's going on with us and what I can do to make the world livable for my children and grandchildren and everybody's children and grandchildren. It seems like the best game in town to play. I don't know.
Do you how do you, I don't know if you get into, I don't know how much of this you focus on, but obviously you know an immense amount of how we think and how we got to thinking this way, right? Evolutionarily.
Yeah. I don't know.
Technology, obviously last 20 plus years, it's exploded.
Yeah.
What we're doing, social media, we can, you spoke a lot about language and how that makes us unique. And it's really, I wrote down language like 15 times because it's linguistics and things. I'm like, I almost underestimated the impact that has on everything we're talking about. But
anthropologists do all the time.
Yeah.
They hardly pay attention to how much of a difference language makes.
Yeah, but
they do, but it's often sidelined by something else that they're. I'm amazed by that.
Yeah, but I wrote it down several
the
times.
Between us and
just speak. But technology, there's almost not that's another language, but obviously there's an immense difference in how we can communicate now versus 10 years ago or 20.
Of course.
So, and now metaverse, you fast forward 20 years, 30 years, and what do you see this, how, if we're having the same conversation 30, 40 years, 50 years from now, how do you think this conversation would be different, or would it?
Well, so given that we are anxious and given that we need to escape our own anxiety, a whole lot of my work is on optimal illusion, how to kid ourselves in ways that help, not harm. That is, I think it's absurd for people to claim that we should all be realistic. If we were realistic all the time, we would go insane. So the question is how to be unrealistic safely. So safe escapism. I call it, strategic gullibility. It's just central to my work. And so for me, so there's a big distinction for me between, so take a metal concert you go to and take a Trump rally. I've been to one Trump rally. So I don't end up playing metal. I think they are both wonderful, except for one difference between them. Actually, I'm going to name 4 things just to make it completely bizarre and vulgar. So, metal concert, Trump rally, church service, masturbation. Okay. I'm going to say they are all forms of escapism where you can gain a little mojo pit stop booster. That is, you can come out of it feeling good about yourself, feeling like you're in the right place, a little bit of peace of mind. Yes, there are some differences between them. You could certainly get some wisdom from the metal concert or from the Trump rally, theoretically, and from the church service. You're probably going to get less wisdom from masturbation, to pornography or something like that. But I'm separating out the wisdom or the education from the need for escapism. Escapism is undervalued. We talk about entertainment almost like it's an optional elective thing. No, I think it is an absolute human necessity. The only question for me, you could add another one. Go to a Marvel movie, Marvel Universe movie. Okay, that's 5 different examples of escapism. With each of them, you are identifying with someone heroic or someone on the side of virtue. With each of even the stud muffin, the guy who fantasizes that he's a stud muffin because he's watching porn, even that is a moment of basically vicarious thrill of being good, safe, strong, powerful, something like that. Okay, so what is the difference between good and bad escapism? It's not about how far out you go, it's about whether you remember to come back. Take your flights of fancy, but always with a return ticket to reality secure in your heart pocket. So I think that the metal concert is better than some church services and the Trump rally because of what happens in the parking lot after. After the metal concert, people go to the parking lot and they get back to their lives. After the Trump rally, people think that they have seen something more real than reality. After some church service, that's the only difference. Not how far out you go, it's about whether you remember to come back. We have to get better at distinguishing between reality and fantasy, I think. And there's another layer of it that also metal will help you get to, which is there are two things going on in those kinds of behaviors, those escapist behaviors. There's virtual vice and there's virtual virtue. So virtual virtue is when you're thinking that you're heroic, you're glorious, you're helpful, you're kind, you're generous. Virtual vice is when you feel like you're a badass. You basically, I watch a whole lot of gangster and mobster violent stuff. I find all of that somehow satisfying to my soul. We want opposite behavior. We want the virtual virtue, like thinking you're on Jesus' side, to motivate you to go out and do real virtue. You want someone to go to church and then afterward they walk out and they say, "No, I already gave in the abstract at church, and now I'm going to go." This was Luther's point. He was saying frequent communion. You go in on Sunday and then you're awful on Monday.
Right.
We want virtual virtue to be a motivator of real virtue. We want virtual vice to be a substitute for real vice. Okay, so this is all stuff that humans handle intuitively. We just handle it. We never even think about it. But in 50 years, if we were to talk, that would be what I'd hope we'd gotten better at. Because reality's buffers are dwindling. We used to be able to afford all sorts of ridiculous folly and pretend it was real back when we had the resources and the environment and the population that could absorb it. At this point, we need to get more realistic about reality, but that doesn't mean we can, pledge ourselves to be realistic. We need escapism.
What if with technology that escapism becomes less of a short-term deviation from reality?
Yeah.
And it becomes more the norm where where now technology is okay, but I can escape for a little while and I come back because it's right here. But with the metaverse and technology and symbiotic relations between humans and machines, maybe I'm escaping, quote unquote, all day and I don't have to come back to reality. What the hell happens there?
No, so we were. I was giving the optimistic story about what we would be. I've been exercising in VR for the last 3 years. I am totally impressed by that as the first. It's the only. What is the word for it? It's an art form. It's a medium that is. It is complete. That is, it's fully absorbing. There is a term for it. I've just jumped out of my head.
Immersive?
What's that?
Immersive?
It's total immersion.
Yeah.
It's total immersion is what I mean. It is the only truly, absolutely immersive. It's not absolutely because your body's still in the room, but it is startling how, when you take them off, how different it is from.
Which one do you use? Curious. Which one do you use? I'm just the Oculus or.
Oh, I've been using the Oculus Quest 2. I was on the Quest 1. I was on the Go before that.
Okay.
The exercise programs aren't proving enough to satisfy me long term, but I used Supernatural for 3 years. I use Fit. I use the boxing ones. I love the boxing ones. Yeah, have you played in any of that yet?
Yeah. No, they're super cool. I mean, I'm a tech geek. I love that stuff anyway. So, but I take them off and I'm right back to reality, right? Because now I'm just
that's right. Yeah. So how that's going to play out is going to be interesting because I think in some ways it makes it makes the contrast more apparent to us, and I think that's important is to keep on noticing the contrast because people will. I know even academic researchers who had one moment, like when they saw a vision or something like this, maybe on a drug or maybe just by themselves, and that has now tinged their entire approach to their academic research. I find it frustrating, but I never have an epiphany. There are lots of bad epiphanies, and never have one you assume is so good it's your last. But these guys, I know one cat. He's a physicist and philosopher, brilliant guy. But he once saw a vision, and that has him thinking the supernatural
or
is
mushrooms
real
involved.
In a certain way. What?
Were
No,
mushrooms
it
involved?
wasn't in this case, but it could have been. No. We've done some drugs together, him and me, but
Yeah.
no, it wasn't when shrooms when he did. This was when he was younger, and so he's fixated on this idea.
Wow.
So if you keep on taking off and on the goggles,
Yep.
that could actually help you recognize. Oh, I actually have to manage two different realms.
Yeah. Yeah.
The contrast could be good for us, but in terms of in 50 years, there's a good chance that we'll all be legends in our own minds, and it'll be like that. Off in our own worlds, more and more. That's certainly it's been played out. Pixar made a movie about it. That one a couple of years ago. There was a virtual reality.
Not the Ralph.
Spielberg.
Oh, I thought you meant I'm thinking about the. Oh.
No, not Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah,
It's,
something.
it was a Spielberg movie in which everybody's living in a dystopia. That is, the world is gone, but everybody's living out stuff in virtual reality. I think it was Spielberg. I'll look it up.
Oh, I forgot. I love all the dystopian. I literally search dystopian top movies all the time. That's my favorite. That's my favorite genre. I don't remember the Spielberg one though.
It was called something. VR movie. Ready Player One.
Oh, I didn't know.
Remember that movie?
I have
Ready
not seen
Player
it.
One?
I have not seen it.
You've got to see it.
Ready
It's right
Player
up your
One.
alley.
I'm writing this down. All right. It is Spielberg?
Yeah.
That's got to be good, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's got some talent. Yeah, so the technology thing scares me. It's exciting and scary because I just, like you said, you take the goggles off and you feel that contrast, and maybe that'll ground you. But I think the more, I always go back to technology because it's just so interesting to me. But if I'm now have permanent implants that I can just blink twice and now I'm in another universe, and I close my eyes and there's nothing to take off. I just have to know that I have to shut it down and go back to reality. I think I feel like we'll start to be in the escapist world more and more until that almost becomes the reality. Then it's almost like this whole script flips.
Oh, yeah. That's the theme in Ready Player One. So in a way, in my work, I don't weigh those options so much. I'm not paying as much attention to how it will end, but I am paying, especially because, think about how important that was if you were in charge of the world and you were deciding whether to let the technology, release the technology into the world or not.
Yeah.
But we're not that, obviously. So I'm much more interested in the dynamics, the tendencies, the directions it can go, the opposite ways it can go, and how they will play out with respect to each other. So it's not like everybody's going to do one thing. There probably will be a divergence. I think we're already in it. I think that anybody who's watching Tucker Carlson 2 times a night is already in that world to some extent. That is, they're already describing a world in which, that is masturbation. It's not actually, I'm not talking about what he's claiming. I'm talking about what he's doing as a process. You could do that on the left as well. You could, it's not about politics. I'm just saying that is a form of self-reassurance that you are part of the solution, not part of the problem. You have nothing to doubt. And if you do that and you become a legend in your own mind, and then you go to work all day, and at work you're a perfectly decent, normal, civil person. So, you don't get to act out that bravado. Okay, so now think about the various dynamics around this and how they might want to play it out. My biggest problem, I have no problem with them. If they were a religion, they could be a problem, but they wouldn't be the problem they are when they're trying to turn the management of large populations into a vanity project. That's the only problem. And that would be a problem on the left as well. It should not, to be fair and balanced does not mean that you give equal points to every side in the contest. It means you have a common standard. And I'm saying the standard right now is really being, yes, I live in Berkeley. I know what it's like to hang out with radical leftists. I lived on a hippie commune for, I have 1,000 friends from one of the most dedicated leftist things. So I know what it's like on the left.
Yeah.
But and I'm not speaking, and you could do this on the left, but right now it's just being done. The epidemic these days seems to be running not, I am more, I read Edmund Burke, I read deep conservative thought, but this isn't conservative. That's not what this is. This is wanking. This is just jerking off in public and treating the government as your vanity project. And you could do that on the left, right, or anywhere.
Have you advised public policy from this perspective? Like, I think, I would imagine, I've said this to a few folks in the past, where our leaders, right, our policymakers, now I don't have any faith that they'll do this in earnest on either side, but like, instead of the policies and lawmakers being just advocating for their constituents and not really caring about really the impact of what they're, the rules and laws they're putting in place, but speak to folks like you and get a true, like, hey, is this better for humanity? Now that's obviously a wildly optimistic thing, but wouldn't that be the ultimate?
Not the best use of me, it turns out, and I did get a degree in it. So
when
I got my I got a master's in public policy, which is how you train to be a policy wonk. And all of my colleagues from that intimate program, was 40 students, maybe 60 at the time, going through a 2-year program at Berkeley. Most of them went into policy analysis. Most of them within governments where it didn't matter some. Obviously, constituents is a touchy word here. Right now, the constituents are not necessarily the people in the who you represented. They're often the interests that have more influence about whether you remain in office.
Yep.
That's part of the corruption of our system. But my interest would be much more in how you communicate with large. How at this point, mine is much more in speech writing or messaging. Because I think the messaging on the left is stupid, and on the right is proudly and successfully stupid. I think we have to. I think at this point, anytime you. So coming back to what I said earlier, I think there really are 3 parties at this point: left, right, and what I'll call Trump bots. And it's not about Donald Trump. It's just people who will play trumped up Trump cards to pretend moment to moment that they are like God. That's what I mean as the third party. And how you deal with them, you cannot debate them, but that doesn't mean you can ignore them. But every time you debate their points, so imagine you're talking to someone who doesn't care about what they're saying, they're just pretending to be aligned with gobbledy. Whatever it is, I'm a patriot. Anybody who disagrees with me is a traitor.
I'm forgetting gobbledy that was the good side, right? In your
it was the good side, right? You're oh ye of little faith, you've already abandoned the original religion I pulled out my butt. No, so anyway, so I'm saying if you debate them, you enable them, because all they're doing is masturbating to you taking their bait. So don't debate. They're just.
So this is the asshole party. You said the left, the right, and the asshole party. That's what you're describing, right? The asshole party.
That's right. If you're talking to someone on the asshole party, they're not paying any attention to what the words mean. I live in Berkeley. I'll give you an example so you don't think I'm exactly who I look like. This long hair hippie. Okay, I dated for 3 years.
All those incense in the background. No, just kidding.
No, that's right. It's my hookah and my bong. Where's my bong? I gave up dating after it was about 2 years really, because everyone I went out with was using mindful as their gobbledy. And I would ask them, how do you define mindful? They hadn't a clue. It meant paying attention to everything. Well, you can't pay attention to everything. Well, paying attention to the right thing. Well, what does it mean? They had no idea. They just knew it was hella good. And if you said something they didn't like, they just had to call it not mindful, because they were in favor of mindful. And I just finally gave up. I said, I'm not dating in Berkeley anymore. I can't do this.
So you gave up dating how many years ago?
Oh, well, I gave up. I gave up on and off over the years, but I gave up about 5 years ago.
Is that why you keep bringing up
I
masturbation?
realized
Is that why you keep bringing up masturbation?
that's the only reason I'm absolutely obsessed. No, everything I do is just it's just a vehicle for me saying that word.
That's right. All right, I'm changing the title of this episode for sure.
I see we didn't even talk about limits beforehand. No, but that no, actually, I have great respect for masturbation. And I didn't through most of my life. I was so ashamed of it. But that's besides the point. I'm 65. My appetites aren't what they used to be. And I'm glad that my appetites have finally, my lack of appetite has finally caught up with my lack of aptitude. I'm not good at close range. I wouldn't be, if I was someone else, I wouldn't want to live with me. I adore living with me.
Now, did you ever, personal question, were you married ever or?
Yeah, 17 years. I have 3 kids by it. Yeah.
Okay. And you just learned
that. And long relationships. Yeah. I've been all around that. I did open relationships. I did casual dating. I did marriage. And I grieved hard when I broke up. I was hyper. It was an important part of my life. But in general, what happens is women think I'm wonderful at first because I can name more than 2 emotions. I mean, I seem like a sensitive guy, but can you imagine dealing with me all the time? It'd be oppressive. It'd just be unbearable to deal with me all the time. So I'm just much better suited for friendship. I love friendship. You can you connect where the connecting's good. It's friendship without benefits because benefits invariably confuse friendships.
Yeah.
I like pals. Yeah. And I like also not being distracted by, I mean, I was very lookist. I paid a whole lot of attention to looks, and they have no bearing on whether someone's good company. They're almost, if anything, they're inversely related.
Yeah.
Attractiveness, I lucked out. I had a nice run.
Yeah.
I dated a model who was making $20,000 on a weekend. But no, we were not compatible.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, you live an interesting life, my friend, and I love your story.
True,
and
it's weird.
It is interesting. I think your journey, I mean, obviously you have the interest and the aptitude and the education, but I feel like your journey's also augmented your perspective.
I live this stuff.
Yeah, man.
And academics don't necessarily.
Yeah.
No, it is. I'm not a spiritual guy. I enjoy the supernatural in my entertainment. But I don't actually. I think this was perhaps a difference between us. I'm in the world of trying to find natural explanations for all natural phenomena, and I don't pull out the supernatural card for that. So, but this is the equivalent of my spiritual path. It's just understanding us better and better, taking notes, and sitting with a guy like you on a front porch of the universe, wondering about it and us in it. That's my idea of a good time.
Amen. Yeah.
Not many people get to do that.
I'd do 10 of these podcasts a day if I could, if there was no job thing and all the other stuff, but we are where we are. Yeah. Well, Jeremy, right. Exactly. Thanks again. Awesome discussion with you. What do you got? Let's close it off. What do you got? Books, podcasts. You said you're writing a book. What are you doing day to day? What's coming down next? What's the book about?
I write for Psychology Today. I've got 1,000 blog articles on there covering all manner of subjects. And then in October, I put out a book called "What's Up with A-Holes." What's up with assholes? How to spot and stop them without becoming one. So a lot of my work these days has been in what I call psychoproctology, which is it's trying to get as clear as possible in our diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of assholery. So the diagnosis, we've covered a lot about that today. We covered a lot about the prevention that's because I think the safe escapism or optimal illusion is the key to that. We just got to get better at really encouraging people to do escapism safely. But escapism, we have to honor escapism more than we have. And honor the varieties of escapism. Because life is just too scary. We didn't talk much about the treatment, how you actually deal with a-holes, but that's been a big fascination for me, and I've got work on that. I make videos. I'm working on a new book, but you can find way too much of me at js@jeremysherman.com. So it's kind of a central repository.
Yeah,
I put out maybe 10 or 15 bumper sticker size memes a day on Facebook. I Facebook friend anybody who's interested.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely not a lazy human, that's for sure. You are always working. It's too bad you don't have to work because you'd be a great employee.
I don't know that I would be.
You would need very little rails. You'd have to be free. Like you'd have to be.
I have had the luxury in my life to get to work on the projects that I want to work on, and I adore this work. I'm very lucky to have that. I know people who have my kind of freedom and don't know what to do with it.
Yeah,
that scares me.
Yeah,
scares me.
I haven't spoken to you in about 2 years, but one word I wrote down in my notes, because I looked through my notes, I wrote gratitude. You just exude gratitude.
Yeah, no, thank you.
You do, you really do. It's like this. I'm getting the same exact vibe from you now, which is awesome. Which means you didn't get tarnished by the world. You're still optimistic.
No, I'm still at it. Still at it.
Good. It's all good. Hey, thank you so much. Let me stop the recording. And
it's fabulous to see you again. It's been a while.